6 of the 9 classes in Team Fortress 2 have single-fire weapons. The ones that don't are Pyro, Heavy, and Medic. Over time, however, this changed. Medic got the Crusader's Crossbow, a single-fire syringe gun that rewards you with higher damage or healing the farther your target is. Pyro got the Dragon's Fury, a single-fire flamethrower that rewards you with faster firing and higher damage for consecutive hits. But what about Heavy? Why doesn't he get anything? I mean, sure, he has the Tomislav which shoots slower and is more accurate, but that's only halfway there. The one thing I wanted more than anything is a single-fire minigun. But, alas, there was nothing I could do. No updates means no single-fire minigun. This dream of mine was unfortunately put to rest, never to see the light of day again. That is, until April 28, 2023, when Team Fortress 2 Classic released the Fight or Flight update. New maps, new weapons, new game modes, so much content. But there was one thing that stood out to me. One thing that I had been waiting so long to see. The weapon that I had been dreaming of for so long was finally brought to life. The single-fire minigun that I have always wanted was here. The anti-aircraft cannon. Let's go over the basic functions of this weapon. This thing doesn't shoot bullets, rather it shoots explosive shells that deal 60 to 80 damage per shot that can also mini-crit airborne enemies, which makes sense given the weapon's name. This single stat makes hitting airborne enemies pretty satisfying. Also, the AA cannon holds 40 shells as opposed to the minigun's 200 bullets, but both run out of ammo at the same time if you continuously fire them. Interestingly enough, despite the AA cannon being a hit-scan weapon, it technically doesn't shoot tracer bullets, meaning that the shells can hit things like walls or enemies even when your crosshair isn't on them, though the size of these shells aren't too big. However, this thing can inflict self-damage, which can be pretty detrimental, so if an enemy gamer gets in your face, then be prepared to take some damage. They're probably trying to get this achievement too. Just be careful when shooting around a corner, since the shells might hit the corner and deal some pretty hefty damage to you. Now, on to splash damage. Shooting this weapon at someone can deal quite a bit of damage to anyone standing near them, which is great for crowd control. However, there's a 33% damage penalty applied to splash damage, so it's not something to rely on. In order to get the most out of the AA cannon, you need to aim at the person you're shooting at instead of the floor. This is in contrast to the rocket launcher because it's not a projectile as stated previously. People generally try to avoid this thing's explosions though, so it's not a bad area denial tool if you shoot this at a doorway or a choke point. You can also use this to your advantage when trying to kill an enemy or destroy a sentry nest by shooting at the floor or a nearby wall while remaining out of view. The enemy can either stay in place and continue to get harassed by your splash damage, or they can walk out in the open for a direct confrontation and risk getting blown up. This weapon also has a limited range of 900 hammer units, which is roughly the length of the 2-fort bridge, more or less. Once it reaches that max range, the shell will explode in the air. If I were to place a bot at one end of the bridge and shoot at them from the other end of the bridge, it's just about the maximum distance I can reach before only the explosion reaches them and not the shell itself. In practice, this downside can appear quite frequently, so you'll need to adjust your positioning if you don't seem to be hitting your targets. Also, I feel the need to mention that this thing is loud. Revving the gun produces a very loud and obnoxious air raid siren that basically sends out a message to everyone on the server that you're using the AA cannon. It's a miracle that the Heavy doesn't go deaf when using it, because I definitely do. I need to put on some earphones. Future Ghost Town here. They changed it so that it's not loud anymore. Now it just sounds kind of like an engine, so that's pretty neat. Back to you, bad stuff. Anyways, now that we've gone over the stats of the weapon, how should you go about using it? The core idea of the AA cannon is still the same as a minigun. You press and hold M1 on an enemy whenever you see one. Classic Heavy gameplay, not much you can do about that. However, instead of needing to close the gap to kill someone, you now have the freedom to shoot a bit further away, as the AA cannon deals damage more reliably across a further distance until the shells can no longer reach a target. This lets you change up your positioning a little bit in order to take full advantage of the AA cannon's reach. This weapon excels on the high ground as you can harass the enemy team down below and mini-crit anyone who dares to jump out at you. But how does the AA cannon compare with the minigun? Well, before we get into that, we need to go over the differences between TF2C's minigun and the base game's minigun. Interestingly enough, they are different. After running some tests and looking at both wikis, here's what I found. Base minigun has a wind-up time of 0.87 seconds, while classic minigun has a wind-up time of 1 second. Base minigun has a wind-down time of around 1.2 seconds, while classic minigun has a wind-down time of around 0.5 seconds. Base minigun has a 1-second damage and accuracy penalty during its first second of revving, while classic minigun does not. Both miniguns shoot 4 bullets per ammo spent, have an attack interval of 0.105 seconds, and have damage penalties to upgraded sentry guns. So, overall, classic minigun seems to be a bit stronger than base minigun. With that out of the way, which is better, the AA cannon or the minigun? The minigun has a much higher DPS than the AA cannon, but the AA cannon is much more consistent at medium to long range. If you're in an open area with multiple enemies, it could be worth switching over to the AA cannon. Similarly, if you're indoors with not much room to move around, the minigun might do you better here. All in all, it depends on the map and the classes you're fighting against. Let's say you're using the minigun and you come across a scout. He's double jumping around, strafing and dodging all your shots, and bam, you're dead. Picture yourself in that same scenario, but with the AA cannon. All you need are 2 direct hits and bam, he's dead. Let's take a look at another example, but this time with a heavy. Say he's using a minigun and you're using the AA cannon. You both round the same corner and start firing at the same time. He outdamages you and you're dead. Picture yourself in that same scenario but further away. You both round different corners and start firing at the same time. You outdamage him and he's dead. Let's take a look at one more example. You're running around and you come across a pyro. Say you're using a minigun. He charges at you, strafes a bit, sets you on fire, and he dies. Now, say you're using the AA cannon. He charges at you, strafes a bit, sets you on fire, and he dies. See what I mean? It just depends on the situation you're in. I hate to be that guy with the inconclusive answer, but both miniguns are solid choices. One might work better than the other in certain scenarios, but it'd be pretty far-fetched to say that there's a wrong choice. This is what's great about the AA cannon. It slightly changes Heavy's playstyle just enough to feel like something new while not interfering with the role he plays on the team. It's balanced, is fun to use, and not annoying to fight against. That, to me, is what makes this weapon great. Though, admittedly, I feel like I do more with the AA cannon than with the minigun. But hey, that's just my opinion. If you want to play around with the AA cannon, you can download Team Fortress 2 Classic from their website, which I have linked below in the description with instructions on how to download it. I should also mention that it's due for a Steam release soon, so wishlist that to get notified of when it drops. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.